Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to keep up to date with the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and join the Flat Earth Debate forum. And if you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are currently joined by Sleeping Warrior, Arwin, and is it Deanne? Am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, that's all right.
And Deanne, good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Deanne, what shapes the Earth, sir?
What shape is it? Oh, I know it's a plane. I don't know the exact proportions or shape. I know it's a level surface.
Answer. Is it a ball?
Nope. Sorry.
I don't think so. I don't think it's a ball either. I've not seen any evidence tell me that it is a ball.
Not a ball.
And even if it were a ball, it's not a literal geometrical ball. That were the case.
It's a parabol.
Parable.
Talking of balls, any signs of Earth curvature been presented to demonstrate that it might be a ball?
Nope.
Nope.
What about axial rotation that demonstrates it's a spinning anything?
Bob proved the spin of the Earth.
No, he didn't.
Yes, Bob. Have you checked out Bob the Science Guy? That's not very sciencey. He's done a dedicated 2-part video about you. What to do with one of the logical fallacious reasons. I'm not quite sure which point it was. I can't remember. I didn't watch it. I just saw it advertised and I thought, Bob the non-science guy is now, rather than debating it properly, coming in and accepting that he's wrong, he's now going back out after being demonstrated logically fallacious and then reasserting his position without any opposition and then reclaiming that he's right. What an utter moron. Bob, the non-science guy, stop being a dick. You think you're right, come in and we'll tell you why you're wrong again. Stop making corrective video for a correction that you're not actually correct on. That's called dishonest.
Oh, that was actually not the Bob that I was referring to. I was being a troll for a moment.
So
you know what I mean? Because Behind the Curve documentary, Bob proved the spin of the Earth. It's the claim. Of course,
no, Bob didn't prove the spin of the Earth. Absolutely not. We'll get to that maybe later. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
Nope.
Thank God, no.
What about the distance to the
we
sun?
don't want to manipulate the gravity factor if it's even possible.
Well, we'll come back to manipulating things again in reference to who was it that put this piece out? Netflix. It's not Netflix though, is it? Who's the actual production house? Do you know?
It was put out by the BBC, Behind the Curve documentary, and it was, I think it was the BBC, right? And it was indeed on Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix put it out, but it's obviously not them that's producing it. They've just paid for it, but I just didn't know the name of the... It's not that relevant. We'll come back to it. Anyway.
I've seen the guys that did the video. There's an interview with the producer, and there's like 2 males and a female, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the vast majority of Globebuster show yesterday, and the bit that struck me the most was Jaren and his sort of tentativeness about signing their release form, and they basically lied to his face to get him to sign it, which I thought was pretty disgraceful. So that's obviously that arena. They've decided that they're going to ridicule people and they'll just lie to their faces in order to achieve their ends. And there we go. Anyway, so what about any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
None.
Well, they do seem to be making new paintings.
Yeah, that's for sure. Is it that that thing is turning inside Earth? Is it spinning?
No.
No, originally they do claim that, and that is supposedly causing the magnetics, which is ridiculous because yeah, that doesn't work if it's actually going to be fluid. But that was the original concept.
Well,
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
as well. And I'm very interested to find out the direction of the turn.
Yeah.
Really difficult to ascertain the direction of bullshit. Anyway, any evidence, and someone's causing a bit of feedback, any evidence of gas pressure being maintained without a container?
Conspiracy Cats 2018, quotes, without a balloon, there is no pressure, end quotes.
Yeah, or without the container there can be no pressure, end quote, Conspiracy Cats. Yeah, he's on our side in this regard, blatantly, you know.
Accidentally, I think.
Last but not least, any evidence of Earth radius, the R value?
Nope. But I do have a problem with assuming R. And that will go towards the discussions when anybody brings up an image or a footage that's been taken over a big body of standing water, discussing the image with the idea that there is a curve. It's already assuming R, so I think that should be taken away from the gobies. I think they should first present with evidence that a standing body of water can...
The main screens that she'll be using, and a couple of features on this.
Your mic's cutting in and out again, Anthony. You've got terrible sound issues today.
I have to do a restart. Oh, my gate's too high. That's what the problem is. Is that any better?
I don't know.
Hello.
Yeah, you're coming through clear now, but just yeah, it seems to be randomly fluctuating.
Yeah, sorry, I have my gate really high. It should be better now.
Fine with me.
A little bit of feedback, guys. Is it okay?
Yeah, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. It's just we were waiting for you to carry on. You interrupted. Forget the sound issue.
I didn't. If I did interrupt, I didn't mean to. Oh, you might have. Sorry, you might have heard the music playing in the background. My thing playing in the background. It's all right. Carry on. Ignore me. I've turned it off.
No, I just heard you, and that's what I waited. I
said something about mainstream. I heard the word mainstream come through the garbled mess that is your sound today.
Yeah, it's something that was in the background. Ignore it. It was me talking, but it was on the video I'm building, so don't worry about it. Carry on.
I'm sorry I didn't realize that. So I got up to the point that discussing footage is automatically assuming R, and that I think that the glowheads should be able to provide us with proof that a standing body of water can display convexity on the surface, and then we can go into discussions of atmospheric effects and what can we observe over water. Until then, we all know all bodies of water, like flat and level. So every aspect of visual phenomena can be contributed to a flat surface.
When you say discussing atmospheric conditions, do you mean when we're just looking at an observation and just talking about what it is, or do you mean in reference to globeheads specifically?
Well, yeah, bulkheads in general, because they assume curvature all the time. And it's kind of strange, but they don't realize that if they're on a curved surface, you may not be able to see some of the atmospheric distortions that happen unless you get your elevation higher so you can observe it from a height. Because reflection on curved surface and flat surface are totally different. I sent a picture to Arwin. I don't know if he can present it now. Yesterday on his show, we talked about that.
The picture you put out on Skype?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let me find it. Got some skydiving pictures as well.
Yeah. I had to prove that I'm a skydiver. I made the claim, so.
Right, so this one, right?
Yep, exactly. So how can you get mirages and refraction on the left side of the thing if you're at, let's say, sea level high, like a normal observer, 6 to 7 feet? You won't be able to see it in a certain distance. If you get like 100 meters high, then you might be able to see some atmospheric phenomena occurring on the apparent horizon, but otherwise, it's all a quality of a flat surface.
Yep. Yeah, all the observations so far do support a flat surface. And there's plenty of them. Although there, of course, is more to optics than meets the eye.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's a little bit more complicated. You got the limited viewing angle, you got the naturally occurring obstruction at the horizon, all that. And yeah, Globers like to leave all that information about optics out, because then they can much more easily suggest that obstruction is curvature.
Yeah, I just generalize the whole issue because you guys can explain this certain details better than I can. And I admire the work that you did with all the observation. I think it's tremendous and it brings so much clarity into how we perceive our world and actually how it all works. I think it's just phenomenal. So I appreciate what you've done. I thank you for it. Enlightened me a lot.
It's been a learning process for all of us.
Oh yeah.
It's really
We'll
funny still if we hear like the debates from a year ago where we were at back then, still trying to find the connections, but already feeling out where it was going, kind of. Still just didn't really find the right words for it, but we did find it eventually.
what I'm going to have to do, I need to do a little bit of narration, so I'm going to have to drop out of this hangout and then rejoin after I've done the narration, because I'm going to be in UA. I should be back in about 5 minutes, okay?
Well, do you want to save yourself the trouble? All you need to do... yeah, you got to actually use your mic. Yeah, no worries.
All right, I'll be back in a bit.
In a bit.
All right.
Nathan, I have a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Are we have anything left in housekeeping?
No, we covered it all.
Still finishing up R.
No, we covered R.
We never really finished it. So let's just say no. No proof of art.
I
think we're done now. What was your question?
Well, I wanted to get into Coriolis effect for a tiny bit, if it's not a problem.
No, go right ahead.
So there's an interesting discussion about it. It's like when somebody brings out snipers and bullets and how they have to account for the Coriolis effect. Well, it's a bit laughable because speed and Coriolis effect are very closely tied together. I'm not saying there is such a thing as a Coriolis effect, but in the globe-head examples, it's really foolish and silly when you hear it from the side. They say, for example, a sniper should, compensate or take in consideration the Coriolis effect when you say like a proper huge sniper rifle shoots a bullet with, let's say, 1600 miles per hour or less or more, it doesn't even matter. But then as faster the bullet or the projectile is, it actually cancels the Coriolis effect, especially if it reaches the same speed as the globe is supposed to be turning with. So them referring to a bullet and Coriolis effect is just like, donkeys flying into space. It doesn't connect. If you're shooting a hot air balloon out of a rifle and it will take ages to get to the target, then you might get into consideration the Coriolis effect. But otherwise, if you're shooting a high-speed projectile, you don't need to.
Well, there either is or is not a Coriolis effect. So for all those people that say, of course, Earth is spinning and we have a Coriolis effect, here's an example of a sniper. It's like, okay, so what you're saying is the sniper shoots his bullet, the bullet leaves the gun, it's no longer attached to the spinning frame of reference that is Earth, and the Earth turns underneath, and you must account for the fact that the Earth has turned underneath the bullet when you take your shot. Therefore, Coriolis correction for snipers. Well, if the Earth is turning underneath the bullet, it is also turning underneath the aeroplanes. And if the Earth is turning underneath the aeroplanes, you'd get different durations of travel in each direction, east to west, west to east. But you don't. So you can't have it both ways. Either you're affected by the Coriolis because you have two separate reference frames, one rotating underneath the other, or you do not.
Yep, absolutely right. And then say, for example, if a sniper is on the supposed equator, this imaginary construct, I think it is, and he's shooting along with the spin of the Earth, then what he will account for, height or sideways movement? It's just ridiculous. It depends on where the sniper is, what's the line to the target, if it's which direction he's pointing, southwest, northeast, whatever. So he has to make tons of calculations before actually considering taking the Coriolis effect into account. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the worst one for double talk and double speak. And when you get really up high in the echelons of the heliocentric priesthood, they're allowed to double speak the Coriolis effect into existence with things like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying field goals have been missed because the Earth has turned underneath the ball as it's released. And that's the highest level of double speak, because they're literally shoving it right in your face that there should be an effect of the Earth turning underneath the ball. But there isn't. But he can say there is, because then you understand and appreciate that there is an effect of two separate reference frames. That's why the field goal. I forget if it was missed or won, but it's not relevant. Essentially, he sent out a tweet saying that happened on account of the fact of the ball travelling in a straight line with the Earth turning underneath. It's like, oh, right, that's handy for the football. What about the aeroplanes? Oh, it doesn't happen to them. Oh, that's really weird, because it would if it were real. It's not. There is no Coriolis effect. It's such a horseshit.
Well, maybe it's selective like gravity.
Yeah, it's just when needed, when applicable. It's not just an effect of two reference frames. You know, there is a Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect is real. One reference frame turning underneath another. Very simplistic stuff. And if the Earth is that turning reference frame with the atmosphere and the bullet travelling through it, separate to it, then you have a Coriolis effect. Wonderful. But then you'd have the Earth turning underneath aeroplanes. But you don't. They would be the thing that would show the most Coriolis effect, but they don't.
Yeah.
They don't show any.
Especially if you go against the curve. And can I just drop a few lines about airplanes, because I know a few stuff about them. Not a few stuff. I actually know a lot of stuff about airplanes. Probably more than most of the guys that come here to talk about airplanes. Is that actually I even saw it in a video recently where a pilot explains when they get into cruising altitudes how they actually put the plane on autopilot, but then they trim it a bit so it's pointing slightly upwards, because while they're cruising, the plane will have the tendency to slightly drop down because this is the way they fly. So imagine if there is a curve, the plane will want to drop down, but they're actually tilting it up to keep it level. So they're actually doing the opposite of what everybody's telling us, that they're compensating for curve, or the autopilot is compensating. And it's not true. Almost any sort of airplane and all kinds of airplanes have to keep their nose slightly up, so they don't drop when they fly over the plane.
Again, the height of doublespeak, isn't it? So in order to keep level on the flat plane that they're flying across, they must go slightly nose up to remain level. We're simultaneously told by globeheads, no, they're going round the curve. It's just preposterous, but also quite amusing when you think about the doublespeak that you're told.
Yeah, just one sentence of clarity for people, for the audience that may not be able to understand this. If they leave the plane without pitching the nose up, what will happen is the plane will gently start going down, but it will be progressive. So if they don't counteract that thing, the plane will start changing the angle all the time. So at one point, let's say after 5 or 10 minutes, you have it severely going down, and this will be with exponentially increasing it on its own if they don't account for it.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, by the way, guys, I'm gonna leave the debates for now because I'm gonna start up my own show, Flat Earth Early Bird number 107.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Have a good show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
YouTube. See
all
you
right.
guys later.
See you later.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to hear that. Not that he's going, not pleased that he's going, but pleased that he's determined to keep his show running on schedule regardless of what I'm doing. So good on you, Arwin. That's the way to do it. Because regardless, you know, you may have a few less live viewers, and while I do feel slightly guilty for that, you know, his show will still get the same number of people who would have tuned into it, just going back to it to review what he said, review who he's had on, etc., etc. So yeah, good to keep the schedule, even if it's been messed up by me.
I had great fun with him yesterday on his show.
Yeah, I often tune into his show. I mean, I'm normally setting up this show, but it's nice that there's typically nothing on YouTube, if you will, while I'm setting up the show. So typically I'll have my iPad running with Arwen in the background while I'm setting up for the pre-show, which is nice. You know, it's typically a good show. Occasionally he goes bonkers, which is also nice.
Absolutely.
It's quite funny when that happened because people said, I can't remember who, but people were comparing him to Alex Jones and saying, oh, you know, you're just replicating Alex Jones. And it's like, my God, you guys really don't know Arwen very well. You know, that's just what it's like.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
Yeah, he gets very passionate about things, and you know, sometimes he'll get triggered by something specific, and they'll just go off on one. And he does it with us. You know, it's not just like an on-camera persona thing. It's just that's an Arwen thing. Perfectly normal, perfectly within character, not playing up for the audience in the slightest.
Yeah, I've noticed that because yesterday before the show we did a Skype call. So speaking with him before the show and on the show, it was just the same guy, nothing different. He's just being 100% honest and himself all the time. It's like really cool, really like.
Wash your mouth out, Kinnell. Arwen is boring as hell, she says. No way, Arwen is ace. How dare you?
Yeah, I can say Arwen is ace. Nathan, is it okay to say something about relative density?
Sure, I don't mind what you want to talk about. They're all much of a muchness subject these days. So yeah, sure. If you want to talk about gravity or density, that's fine by me.
Yeah, just want to throw a thing in because, as I mentioned earlier, I spent the last 2 weeks listening the show, so I'm back like 3 or 4 months now, and I listen to it all day long from dusk till dawn, and I'm just so used with all of you guys. It's like I spent 2 weeks with you in a room, so it's like yeah. Today, actually, earlier I chatted with you on when you uploaded it, and it was about this one or maybe a previous one, but it was about the relative density with the tall pipe or the petri dish, you called it, with all of the different layers, like the colorful stuff, like rubbing alcohol, water, oil, the bolt on the bottom, the cherry tomato. You recall that?
Sure. It's been up quite a few times. Hi, hold on one second. I'll just say hello to our new guest. Is it Wandering Star?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Hello. How you doing?
Hi.
Wandering Child. My bad.
Nice to divinely, decadently meet you wonderful gentlemen.
Oh, thank you.
You guys are my role models, literally.
I felt the same same way when I joined.
No, you guys are literally my role models. Like I'm serious. I fucking watch your I've been watching your live streams like crazy.
Yeah, they are great.
Yeah, they're hilarious. It's hilarious. It's hilarious stuff. Like there's some of the stuff that they come up with to to kind of just covertly deny the irrefutable, reproducible evidence that there is. That it's just an immovable realm that we're on, decadently divine for purpose.
So
Well,
is
thank you
it
very much.
Wandering Star?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you're on which side of the fence?
Well, I'm on John Keely and Nikola Tesla's side,
All right.
and Jesus's side, and the side of divine understanding and purpose of nature. That we're the center and that everything revolves around us, and that I'm on your side.
Yeah. You familiar with Walter Russell, scientists?
The water. What did you say? The water.
Walter Russell. He's
Oh,
a
Walter
scientist.
Russell. Oh yeah, Walter Russell. Yeah, Walter Russell. I've heard
That good stuff there.
Walter Russell. But let me check on this other site, the Sacred Text site, real fast. 1 second.
Nathan.
I wanted to show you this. I wanted to show you this John Keely PDF that I was just looking up because there's experiments he suggests here that have been hidden from the mass public for a good 1,000 years.
If you want to display something, just pop it up and let me know, and I'll present it to the audience.
Definitely. If you want, I could send you the link, and it's an incredible PDF. You guys should look at this. It's quite insightful and immaculate. It's a display of various experiments, and also just how they relate to the purposes of reality, like just how each star connects to our consciousness and how everything works accordingly. And just basically, did you guys know? Did you guys ever realize about you guys? I don't know if you guys talked about this, but I don't know if you guys have mentioned the idea that the lunar eclipse, nothing ever covers the moon, right? Like we don't have proof that anything covers the actual moon during a lunar eclipse. In
Yeah.
fact, it kind of seems like the moon rejuvenates. It's like it transmutes. The moon itself transmutes its appearance
I'm down with that idea. Yeah.
because it's an energetic luminary celestial force, separate celestial force than the sun entirely. And well, I mean, not entirely. I mean, they do correlate somewhat, but their functions are so different. Like, just simply that you could leave meat out, right, and it could dry. It'll dry in the moonlight, and it'll rot in the sunlight. And just like how moon shade is warmer than moonlight. And
Yeah,
then
I've done this
sunlight is
experiment myself with the laser thermometer, so I can confirm. it is really cold, and it's acting very quick to get things cooled down.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, it's cool. It's awesome. I actually like that kind of stuff because I'm from New York City, so I'm
Yeah.
from around New York City, so it's kind of I'm used to that, you know.
Yeah, modern society, everybody just likes to talk over each other. You know, it's not that I'm not saying it as a bad thing, but it's just people are so eager to share stuff. But you know, mainstream is mostly gossip and irrelevant stuff.
Yeah, like articles that don't really represent the gnosis, you know, the Gnostic, like the self, like that we could prove to ourselves. You know, a lot of the articles, like nobody can prove that to themselves. You know what I mean? Nobody's
Yeah.
proving that to themselves. Like a lot of these articles, like ridiculous articles, pop, you know, pop science articles, you know, whatever it may be. It's just pure ridiculousness. I mean, it's just like in the ancient times in ancient Egypt where they deceived the whole masses of that they were going to space too. You know what I mean? They did the same thing. It's just happening again.
Sorry
It
to
happens
interrupt you
every
guys. I
7,000
just
years.
want to address something from the chat. I'm going to probably butcher his surname. Simon Grabowski at Nathan Oakley. Hi, Nathan. Can you clear something up, as I'm getting really confused? Bob says the ether makes the gyro rotate at 15 degrees per hour. Isn't that an affirming the consequent fallacy? Thanks. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Hope that answers your question, Simon.
So ether's making the gyro spin?
No. That would be a cause and effect relationship that you're trying to establish.
I just got confused.
Yeah. When you assign a correlation to something that you observe in a mechanical gyroscope, you are simply speculating about the cause of an effect. Now, in the case of a man-made gyroscope, the phenomena that you are observing is conjured within the gyroscope that you're observing. So you're not observing natural phenomena. Now, the description given, or
it's Cavendish.
Yeah, that was the comparison I was about to compare it to. Yes, absolutely correct. Yeah,
Completely.
it's akin to Cavendish.
It's not something that's unfalsifiable at all. It's totally. You could debunk it every time. You could. Nobody has been able to reproduce it, right? Cavendish.
If we just stick with the gyros, so it's comparable in terms of the affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy needed in order to affirm the presupposition of whatever it is you're trying to prove. So if you, for the sake of argument, want to take that 15 degrees and attribute it to Earth curve, you can do it. Or you can equally attribute it to the ether turn. Or you can attribute it to the unicorn farts. You can attribute it to whatever the hell you like just by using and affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. Well, the same is applicable to many a quote-unquote experiment that is punted around by globeheads. And myself and a few other people are at the moment on a bit of a crusade to readdress the brainwashing that we've all suffered in terms of what is and is not scientific and what is and is not empirical. Well, most of the assertions made with what seems like scientific equipment, like there is such a thing, are just affirming the consequent formal logical fallacies. So it kind of is a good and a bad thing for Bob on Globebusters, so I'll plug myself and my appearance. So I've got in touch with Bob and said, look, this gyro nonsense needs nipping in the bud. You've got nothing to worry about, and a year from now you will not give a shit about this bollocks. It's complete nonsense, this gyro stuff. It's just, it just needs correction, and the correction is off the back of our, as a whole, brainwashing into what is and is not scientific. So science is now the words of a man when making a comparison to something else. It doesn't matter if it's a model or a piece of equipment like a gyroscope. Well, science is very specific and very narrow, and the complaints we get from people who hijack this empirical method so that they can make assertions about what they observe, be it in something man-made or a natural phenomena, is that that is science, and it is not. That's where we've all been brainwashed. We've all been tricked into thinking that the white coats with name tags say science, and nothing can be further from the truth. Science is a method, it's empirical, it establishes the cause of an effect. Now, if you want to attribute the cause of a 15-degree drift of a gyroscope to the ether or to an Earth turning, it's completely fallacious. You know, it's not logically sound or scientifically valid. So that's something that I'm hoping to go through with Bob. Now, I'm saying this with a bit more confidence than if I hadn't spoken to him and he hadn't got back in touch and said, yes, I do understand this and it would be nice to go through it on Globebusters. So he has dutifully and kindly invited me on the show to discuss this with him. But this isn't a Bob issue. This is an everybody issue. Everybody was sat in the same science classroom with science written across the top of the chalkboard when they were told how the scientific method is performed to prove things. They then, the following day, go to page 12, here's the molten iron core. You know, and then you get a whole narrative about how the molten iron core was formed. You
And
know.
they've only dug 8 miles.
Yeah,
well,
but
if that's being generous. I think they dug like maybe 7 miles. I think that's like not 8. 8 is probably being generous.
Sure, but that's not my point. My point is that you're told that that is science. Yes, you're right. It's totally invalid. My point being that you are given that information under the banner of science.
Oh yeah, it's predisposed. Like,
Good morning, guys.
Hey, I didn't see you join that, Chocolate. How you doing?
Hi,
So
Chocolate.
good. Good morning, guys.
Yeah.
How are you guys
So
doing?
just to round that point out, the issue is we are inadvertently abusing scientific terminology to lend more credence to observation-based research. Now, logical conclusions are totally acceptable. In the past, Anthony has said you can't use logic and reason. Yes, you can. So, in the case of what we are told by the Globe community, they label it as science. So we can hold them to this standard. But if we also simultaneously say we've done an experiment with the gyroscope, well, unfortunately there will be someone on the other side of the argument that will do like I've done to the Globe heads and rip that to pieces. Or, worse, people still fall into their brainwashing, and because somebody, doesn't matter who, has declared that this gyro is science, they say, ha-ha, you've proved the Earth spins. And then you get someone else with a different form of logical fallacy saying, no, it proves ether turns. It's like, oh, right, well, just insert bullshit here, basically. Decide what you want to prove, spin up a gyro, you know what I mean? And then just say it proves it or disproves it, depending on what the outcome is. It's like, well, that's not scientific, unfortunately. So I had this exact same conversation with John Savage. And, you know, when he explained to me that he'd already had the conversation with Adam and he was a bit frustrated because he'd put this out as scientifically valid, but he accepted that it was not, it's still logical to come to the same conclusions based on how useful they are, what they actually do in the real world when performing their functional task. So gyros are still very useful for making the same demonstrations. The only problem is the terminology. It's not an experiment.
I don't want to interrupt here, but I just want to kind of mention this one video, Flat Earth Advanced, the Luminaries Mysterium documentary by Wei Key or whatever. I just posted it in the group chat, and it has some really useful diagrams, and not just diagrams, but truly important integral principalities behind the entire results that we see in our experiments. When we know that we could see like the bottom of a boat from 200 miles away, you could zoom in and see the bottom of a boat 200 miles away. You know, this supports that. Like this entire documentary supports that entirely.
Wandering Star, if you can excuse me just for a second, I want to ask Nathan if he's finished with his point.
Yeah, I'm well done. That was it. My little moan about people getting scientific terminology wrong was rounded up. I'm pleased.
So Nate, can with this in mind, because you started, can I say something about science and then just quickly finish my point on the relative density? Is it okay?
Of course, go ahead.
So I'm actually obtained some phone numbers of some physics teachers and professors, and I'm planning to call them tomorrow to have some fun and to go and entertain some thoughts on second law of thermodynamics and gravity and actual scientific facts or results of actual scientific experiments. So when I'm done with that, I can bring out some information on the show. And then about the relative density, the petri dish with all the stuff that the guy wanted to close and then violently shake it. You were making very good point, but I figured out another thing that he's not realizing is that when you violently shake it, let's say the water molecules will go everywhere, not just on the bottom, but they'll also go on the top. So everything will take part of it, the container, and then with him trying to understand why the heavier stuff go down, and you know, uh, take this as a example of gravity, or how he wants to contribute something to a downward motion, or I cannot remember what exactly was he trying to say, but relative to all the fluids, water will go up and down to get back into equilibrium. If you get what I mean.
Yeah,
After you
absolutely.
Right, because the electron. Is it because of the way the electrons interact? Right.
Well,
Oh yeah. By the way, do you guys believe that there's no such thing as a neutron? Sorry to cut you off, but do you believe that there's no such thing as a neutron as well? Because I have this guy named Roger, Mud Fossil University. I don't know if you know that channel, but he finds a lot of evidence that neutrons probably don't exist. Probably not even part of a really great way to model it. Not that you guys were talking about that, but sorry.
That's okay.
Totally.
We can maybe come
It kind of correlates. It's just.
It's all right. We can maybe come back onto that in a moment. I don't know if you wanted to round out your point, Deanne.
Yeah. So my point was just a simple, conclusion that if you shake this container violently, everything inside it will mix and it will go up and down. And then when you leave it, after a certain time, when the forces of the movement lose their effect, so all kinetic energy is lost, then relative density takes effect. So the water molecules that went up will down in the container will start going up, and then the ones that went up will start going down, so they can achieve their equilibrium. So this is what the guy couldn't wrap his head around, is that it will go both directions.
Yeah, the most important word is equilibrium. So for something to go down in that sealed container, something else must go up to replace it. So if you it's weird because you're told to take the position of the bolt, the most dense thing there, and you say, well, why does it always go down? You go, well, let's pretend for a moment that you are the bolt. Yeah, and rather than shaking it violently, you just, you kind of shake it from side to side over and over again until you've got a mix of the liquids. But the bolt stays at the bottom the whole time, yeah? And then from the bolt's perspective, you watch all of the different mixtures going up. Everything seems to go up away from you if you're the bolt, yeah? So it seems like, well, everything always goes up, yeah? It's like, well, no, that's only from your perspective. Conversely, if you're the ping pong ball, everything seems to always go down. Why is it that I'm always at the top? Why is everything always going below me? Everything's always going down. So it's a balance. For something to go up, something else must go down. And how it goes down, or whether or not it goes down, depending on how you fix your starting point to reference up and down, is dependent on the medium. So relative density are the two most simplistic words that can describe that situation of equilibrium being reached at any given time, depending on what density you are. Hey, Mark, good to have you.
Hi, gentlemen.
Hi, Mark.
What's up, Mark?
Does sound influence that relative density? I think it probably does, right?
Sound?
Yeah,
like
it does.
infrasonic sound waves, and
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can have things like sand become almost fluid-like if you can get the right kind of
I'm sorry, sand or sound?
Sand. I hit both. So he said sound, I said sand.
But yes, it's awesome because that is the experiment. That it's like a cymatic experiment. It's like a what they call sacred geometry and stuff like that, and how the platonic solids like the tetrahedron, the dodecahedron. You know what I mean? Like these seemingly perfect, infinite
You're
shape.
talking about a water droplet on top of a speaker being run through different frequencies, right?
Yeah, and then understanding which layer, like which I guess classifying which layers of measurement of frequency do different functions, and then manipulating even just further than that, just chemical reactions mixed with you know sonic sound wave manipulation reactions, and um, like that's what I really want to do badly soon, really badly. I'm gonna do that soon without a doubt. Like when I go traveling this summer, but
Those are super interesting subject matters. However, they're more about sort of moving forward and understanding more about the world that we live in. Because initially, you've got to kind of figure out what is it you're trying to figure out, if you know what I mean. In other words, what aspect of life? Hi, Paul. How you doing?
true. Mine's less sure than yours, guys. You guys are on a sure path. I'm kind of on one that's very risky. Mine's a very risky one. Mine's at least you guys know what you're looking for. Me, I'm kind of just looking at reactions and just kind of but like me, I'm on the same side as you guys. I totally am on the side of that. This is an immovable realm. This is I think this is the center of everything. We're the only physically conscious existence physically. But I definitely I think there are experiments that prove that demons exist too. But that's a different subject. But and also giants too. Giants supports the entire idea of ancient scriptures and biblical and stuff like that. There's lots of proofs of giants. I could show you Mud Fossil University. This guy Roger, he proves immaculately. There, he even proves that there's monatomic gold that has blood in it and stuff, and has living creatures in it. And he studies like the electrons of like. Basically, he's making a new model. Like he's starting a entirely new model of atoms, and that neutrons don't exist. Basically, neutrons are basically pointless. He's saying.
Right, I'm going to round this live show out for a short break. If you're watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980, then stay tuned as there will be a short after show to follow. Be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe, and if you're in the live audience and need something to do in the meantime, go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Community Forum. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!